Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm Mark Russell from. Welcome, everybody. I hope dinner last night was okay. Yeah. All right. So, after 2 years of being away, it's really great to be back here again. Thank you. I'm doing the formal parts of this, so please bear with me. The Public Theater wishes to acknowledge the land of the Lenape people, the owners of this land. And we are standing on sacred ground, and we never forget it. We're also in the room of Alex Knowlton and Joe's Pub. And thank them and their great crew. Let's see. I want to thank a few people. We made this festival this year with many partnerships. BAM, La Mama, the Skirball Center, and the Chelsea Factory. I hope to get over to the Chelsea Factory. It's a great place. And they've all been incredibly generous partners. It's been great working with them, and it helped the festival spread out across the city. This festival is about resiliency, born out of collaboration. It features artists who have worked long and hard and faced many challenges to get here. I know you have also worked really hard and had a lot of challenges to get here. Thank you. Welcome. I need to say a few thank yous. The people, corporations, and foundations that support this field are amazing champions. Their names need to be recognized and said out loud. First of all, let's thank the artists that make this festival happen. I want to thank Oscar Eustace, the artistic director of the Public Theater, who at this moment is in Australia in the outback somewhere. But he's coming back. This is his sabbatical, but that's why you don't see Oscar around. Anyway, and Patrick William, our executive director. I want to thank my producer, Emma McCrary. Maybe you've met her. And most of all, my associate director, John Grenay. You all know that a great team makes it so much easier and so much better. And we have a great team. I need to thank the producers, creators, the cast, the designers, the technicians, the crew, and S&M teams. SM teams? I don't know. We do that, you know, it's New York. So, of all the shows this season. And Under the Radar is made possible by support from the Distracted Globe Foundation, the Factory International, Arts Council England, Gary Lynch and Kate Hall, Select Equity, and the W Trust, and the Jim Henson Foundation. So give them a good thank you. And lead support for the public is provided by the Blavatnik Family Foundation and the Ford Foundation. And the Lester T. Mertz Legacy Trusts provides leadership support for the Public Theater's year-round activities. Lester Mertz has been supporting the public since this was an empty room. And it's been really a very special relationship. All of the local and federal agencies, public servants, and elected officials that make our work possible. And finally, with our new board chair, Luis Miranda, the Board of Trustees of the Public Theater. Lastly, I want to say thank you to Olga Garay English, who sadly cannot be here today. Under the Radar would never have happened without her support and her guidance. All right, so I'm being stood up by my boss, I believe, right? He's not here.
He's right here.
Oh, he's right here. Here we go. It's my pleasure to give the stage to Freedom Bradley. He's the Associate Artistic Director and the Director of Public Artistic Programs, which includes Public Works, Mobile Unit, the Shakespeare Initiative, Joe's Pub, and Under the Radar. He's my boss. Please welcome.
I don't know how you're someone's boss and you still work for them. That's the biggest con in America right there. How are you all today? How many of you all, is this your first time being here in the Public Theater? For those of you that this is your first time, I say welcome. For how many of you this is your fifth time or more? Thank you for coming back. I remember when I first walked through those doors, it was 1994. I was a student at NYU around the corner. I had no idea what this building held. I didn't know anything about theater. Well, I knew a little bit about it. I watched Grease. But, you know, I didn't know what the power of theater could do. And then I saw a play here called Blade to the Heat. I don't know if any of you all are familiar with that. Yes, George Wolfe directed it, and I saw what theater could do. And it changed my life. And that work, that's the work that underpins what the Public Theater is all about. It was founded by a young man named Joe Papp when he was a young man, built on the fact that theater should be accessible and open to all. We follow that as a value. It is a core value for us here at the Public Theater, but also doing challenging work like Blade to the Heat. Work like, at the time, which was challenging, a chorus line. Work like Hair, which was challenging. Work like the work that we'll see here as part of the Under Radar Festival. The work that Mark brings is in line with all of those wonderful plays that have come here at the Public Theater. I'm so proud of him and his team and the work that they've put out here for all of New York City and all of the world. So I want to thank him, his team for that, and I want to thank all of you all for coming here and joining us for what I promise will be the best Under the Radar that you have ever experienced. Thank you all so much.
Okay, now I want to introduce you to the Chief Executive Officer of our great partner, the Association of Performing Arts Professionals, Miss Lisa Richards-Toney. And Lisa became President and CEO of APAP, you may know, on July 1st, 2020, which was a real surprise to everybody, I bet. What a great job. And she brings more than 20 years of experience leading a small and large arts and humanities organizations, managing change, and building stability. She's most recently served as Executive Director of the Abrahams Scholarship Foundation. I'm going to torture some words here, you just have to bear with me. And she increased the funding and steered the foundation through a period of change in management and programming, finance, development, and governance. Please welcome Lisa Richards-Toney.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. It's early. It's not our time, right? We got to get a little later, but we know how to bring it, right? Good morning. It's so wonderful to be here. So I'm in the backstage, right? And I'm listening to everything. The stage managers are moving about. The crew is moving about. And I'm like, we're back. People are saying places to 5. I'm like, we're back. We're back. You did it. You did it. John Grenay, where is he? You did it. Where are you? Okay. There you are. There. Mark and John, all the artists. And Emma. The technicians, the administrators. Hey to the administrators. We did it. And it is my distinct pleasure to congratulate you. This symposium, I heard all about it. And you got a lot planned today. I wish you the best as you go forward. take stock of what we've accomplished, and take heed of the road ahead. We can do it. I'm so happy to be back in New York City to welcome all of you, hopefully to see many of you at APAP. And I just want to say congratulations. Thank you.
Now, I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, Ronnie Pinoy. And she's the art. Ronnie is the director of artistic programming at Arts Emerson, Boston's leading presenter of contemporary artwork and world theater. Previously, she was a producer with Octopus Theatricals, where she advanced the work of many outstanding interdisciplinary artists. Ronnie co-leads the First Nations Performing Arts with Emily Johnson, is on the board of the Producer Hub, a founding member of the Industry Standard Group, and founder core collaborator of the Groundwater Arts Collective, dedicated to climate justice in the arts. And she's also a composer. So here we go. Welcome, Ronnie Pinoy.
All right. OCO, good morning, everyone. How are y'all doing? Oh, that's such a nice reception for 9 in the morning. Thanks, everybody. So I'm Ronnie Pinoy. I'm Laguna Pueblo and Cherokee. And like many here, I wear a lot of hats. So as Mark mentioned, I'm a presenter. I'm an advocate for Indigenous peoples and decolonization, and a composer. But this morning, I want to focus on us, all of us in this room. I've had a lot of vulnerable conversations with many of you, some even last night, about how difficult the past few years have been, both in our fields and in our world. There have been a lot of obstacles, and needed systems change has been slow. But we continue to process, grieve, and heal as individuals and as an industry. So we come together in moments like this to celebrate our wins and lift each other up. But any anxiety we're feeling doesn't diminish our strength. In fact, I think it's our courage to be vulnerable, to not know the answers, that is actually just what we need. It might feel like we've missed our window after 2020, 2021, and 2022. But as they say, sometimes it can take a long time for the conditions to be just right for change. So while this is a difficult time, while I look at everybody in this room and some beautiful faces I haven't seen in a long time, I'm very optimistic. All of us are sitting in collective discomfort. And we're questioning our assumptions about presenting live theater. We're asking anew what's working and what's not. And that's exactly where we need to be. My own inquiry of questioning assumptions has led me to thinking about the impact of theater. Live theater is culture, and culture is a reflection of society, and one cannot exist without the other. No culture, no society, no society, no culture. When we think of society's past, it's the culture that we remember, from pyramids to Shakespeare. So what does our culture, our live theater, say about our society? This, to me, is where we have the most untapped potential as a field. We need to lead in restorying and imagination. Restorying for our past and present, and imagination for our future. It all comes back to story. As one of my favorite writers, Thomas King, writes, quote, "Stories are wondrous things, and they're dangerous." So I know this being Pueblo and Cherokee. For Indigenous people, stories tell us who we are. They contain roadmaps for life, critical information about food, history, place, and self. Moreover, indigenous peoples know that how the stories that have been told about us have been a matter of life and death. The story of the savage Indian sent my great-grandfather to Carlisle Indian Industrial School. That same story is the reason my family walked the Trail of Tears. Stories are tangible, living things. America has a strong national story, a mythology. It's rooted in the founding fathers, in Thanksgiving, in gun ownership. Yeah. We are, in this myth, the saviors of the free world, exceptional, democratic, benevolently capitalist, and American history is white history. Now, we often talk a lot about the fact that the arts is a place where we can share more and different stories than those offered by this American myth, and amplify marginalized voices. And that's very true. However, what I propose is that what we really need to do is to rewrite or re-story our dominant American narrative. Now, I'm not suggesting there is only one history. Our past is a complex web, as is our present. But identity, the story that we tell ourselves about who we are, is the biggest constraint to change. All we need to see is a few posts on social media or a few minutes on CNN to understand how our stories shape and constrain us. And if we want the arts to be a part of imagining a better future, we need to start using the arts to re-story our past and our present, our national story, our personal story. Restorying means rewriting the dominant narratives that define us. And I believe that until we do, every future we imagine is going to be built on a crumbling foundation. So, what does restorying look like? So to me, it can look like presenting a Cherokee artist, Lena Studi, or Mohegan artist, Madeline Sayette, who was just here at the Public, and their works debunking the notion of the vanishing Indian and manifest destiny. It can look like Step Africa's Drum Folk, which Art Emerson presented, and I know ASU Gamage, who's here, also did as well, which elevates the Stono Rebellion to a place of significance equal to the Boston Tea Party. It also looks like Carolina Performing Arts' presentation of their Southern Futures initiative that excavates their region's complex and violent past with an eye towards a more just future. This looks like the field-wide members of the International Presenting Commons uplifting international work and collaborative practices that challenge American exceptionalism and celebrate the porousness of borders and ideas. It can look like interrogating the plaques on our walls and the memorials that stand just outside our doors. It is knowing our watersheds and how environmental racism is affecting our neighbors next door. Restorying challenges the dominant narratives we live our lives by, and that is incredibly powerful. I would say that many folks in this room are already doing this restorying work, but might be calling it by a different name. However, I believe that this is only half the battle. I know, I'm very demanding. We need restorying and imagination. And imagination is where we really have to be brave. We're wired to look at our problematic world and reflect on how broken it is, to revel in stories of apocalypse, to examine the villain. It's a lot harder to really imagine the better world we want to live in. We all have negativity bias, including me. But what does it look like to wake up and walk out the door in a climate-just, peaceful world? How are you getting to work? What are you eating? What does it smell like? Who are you accountable to? This is a challenge of imagination. Many artists are already creating artistic work in this way. Ebony Noel Golden, Theater Me Too with American Utopia, or Utopian Hotline, other Utopia, and Toshi Regan. But I suggest that we need a wholesale commitment to imagination in our field. Meaning on and off the stage, we need to be brave in activating the better world that we want to see. If we want to live in a world that's different, we can't wait for society to make it comfortable for us to do so. We have to first imagine it, and then we have to build a road from here to there and walk it. So I have a little thesis. Here we go. I didn't do slides, but bear with me. So restoring plus imagination times challenging assumptions / new practices equals the sexy, impactful theater future we really want to see. So there you go. Thank you. So we got restoring an imagination, okay. But while they're actions in themselves, we need a catalyst. And that's where challenging assumptions and new practices come in. We need to sit in the discomfort. Discomfort with new, discomfort with the unknown, discomfort with stepping back, discomfort with vulnerability. So I have some suggestions. There are 4. 1, begin somewhere. Change is imperfect. Don't let the fear of hypocrisy paralyze you. Whether it's shifting internal policies to support climate justice, being critical about what donations to accept given ethical concerns, thinking through how to support land back for Indigenous peoples, or working with an artist who challenges your ingrained processes. Make mistakes graciously, mitigate harm, keep going, and support your peers and colleagues who you see doing it. Activating an imagined world that doesn't exist yet is hard. Individuals from over 15 major arts institutions joined First Nations Performing Arts in our first ever decolonization track, an 8-month cohort experience in action-based learning and assessment around decolonization. Now that was vulnerable, messy work. And folks have said it was some of the most rewarding experiences of their lives. 2, we and our organizations are not the center of the universe. Always bears repeating, yeah. Each one of us, instead, I would say, is one star in a constellation of people and institutions that are looking to support a vibrant society. How are we leveraging the resources we have to shine a light on the work of others? How can our work support someone else? How is our work contributing to civic discourse? When our work and the members of our team are part of the fabric of our community, audience building becomes a much different calculation. So I have an example. Arts Emerson is about to launch its 8th year of the Play Reading Book Club, introduced by my colleague Akiba Abaka. We work with the Boston Public Library System and other organizations like Boston While Black to host book clubs in the city of Boston around the artistic work we present on our stages. These are free, multi-week events approaching 20 hours where individuals across race, religion, and geography come together with a teaching artist to read the play or source material, dig into the context, see the play, and meet with the artist. This program has transformed for us who comes to the theater, and moreover inspired friendships spanning years. Attendees would come to multiple book clubs just to hear how the conversation shifted from Alston to Roxbury. Folks showed up not because of Arts Emerson, but because they wanted to engage each other across difference. And the library, for instance, was a trusted intermediary that they knew. But for me, the PRBC began with an exercise in imagination. What if our audiences knew how to be together across difference? What if they felt the theater space was theirs? 3, culture matters more than you think. As the Arts Emerson staff likes to say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And we can actually thank the wise Peter Drucker for the actual quote. But in your work culture, and this is a tough question we all have to ask ourselves, is your staff respected? Are operations folks consulted in major decisions? Are decisions made in a values-based, transparent way? How does leadership respond to criticism? And how is shared leadership and collaboration embodied, encouraged, and compensated? How is just as important as what? We all know that a difficult situation can be all the more bearable when you have folks around you who have your back. Mark just mentioned it at the top of the day. And do you have your team's back? Restoring who we've been and asking a community to move with you away from the status quo takes a culture of trust. And without it, everything comes to a halt. Number 4, lead by listening. Building community and building audiences are two-way endeavors. I suggest that if we want to matter to others, we might have to say yes or adapt to something that isn't in the neat and tidy plan we had. If we want to matter, we need to let our communities know that they matter to us and show up. Share your space, welcome a community curator, be visible as a supportive community member and not just an arts leader. Live in the discomfort of being receptive rather than prescriptive. All right, so this was a lot. People and organizations are imperfect, and many of us are in the weeds of getting donors, selling tickets, dealing with board members and trustees and budgets and critical operations needs. But just like drinking water and eating your Wheaties, practicing restoring and imagination needs to be a habit. The work can't live in a strategic plan or retreat ideating session. It's sweaty, messy work. Restoring and imagination are a muscle, an activation of that better world we want to see. They reinforce one another, and they need each other. Imagination without restoring is a fairy tale. And restoring without imagination traps us in the status quo. These are not big aspirational ideas. They are everyday actions with high stakes and even more transformative impacts. In live theater, we are in the business of reaffirming or challenging people's core sense of self, both through what we put on stage and how we treat each other. That is powerful. The more that we take on that mantle, and the more we collectively embrace the discomfort of change, the more transformative our field can be. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you. Now I would like to introduce you to one of our coming attractions. These are works that are in progress or ready to tour that I feel you should know about. First one is Andrew Schneider. Andrew is mostly interested in how humans telling stories about ourselves to each other can make us better at being humans. And how much the second law of thermodynamics and grief have in common. He's an Obie Award-winning, Drama Desk-nominated performer, writer, and interactive electronics artist, creating original works for theater, dance, sound, video, and installation since 2003. Perhaps you saw Andrew's work in Under the Radar a few years ago in 2018 called After, or saw his award-winning touring work, You Are Nowhere. He just finished a long run at BAM with his new work, Now Is When You Are, The Stars. Please welcome Andrew Schneider.
Thank you, Ronnie. Yeah, I think we know who we are by what mirrors we surround ourselves with. So I think it's worth it to look at those mirrors. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for being here. My name is Andrew Schneider. I make theater, installation, and dance that plays with perception. It uses science as the blueprint for staging. And hopefully it makes you question your own reality. Before we do anything else, I would like to, this is mostly for me, but you can join along as well if you want. I just want to take like 3 breaths together in this room. You don't have to do it. You can close your eyes or not. I'm not going to lead it, but just 3 breaths. Here we go. Thank you. So I think that we're in the business of having loads of people be in the same room together, and we haven't been able to do that for a while, as a lot of us have mentioned. And several folks have told me that this pitch session should just kind of like get to the point, should start strong and go, and that I would kind of be wasting my time if I just sat in a room and breathed with people. But for me, I think that is the point. That is the point. For us to be together, for us to breathe together, for us to be in the same room, for us to be in the same now. So, thank you for that. Okay, here's what I got. In 2018, I made a show called After. It was in this very building. It used science, sensory deprivation, and the story of a dying mountaineer to induce collective hallucinations.
Doctor says you have 24 hours to live. And that's the good news?
There are no edits in that video. So it works. Thank you, Alexis. Appreciate it. The Sasha Walton-Guest Dance Company saw this piece and commissioned me very graciously to make a new work for their company in Berlin. This piece was called Remains. It's about all the choices that we perhaps don't make in life, all of the roads not traveled, all the potentials and the possibilities not fulfilled. And luckily, this premiered on March 12th, 2020. The last day we could all be in a room together. The show opened and closed on the same night, and the very week, it's a great run. The very week that happened, I got a call from Brown University where I taught a few years ago. I taught a class on reality, and they called and they said, you have to use your research funds or they're going to go away. And I said, oh, I didn't even know I had research funds. That's incredible. When do I need to use them by? And they said, Friday. So, okay. At that point, we really had no idea what was going to be the next 2 years. So I thought, for some reason, okay, now is the time. Now is the time to do that project that I've always wanted to do. It brings people together, not just in space, but in time.
From as far back as I can remember, I've always been fascinated by time and space. From the time I was a kid and I got a hold of my parents' VHS camcorder, to college, when I kept channeling my interests through experimental theater and video work, to grad school, to post-grad school, to my first few shows in New York City, and, well, you get the idea. I'm fascinated by our place in the cosmos, both in the deep space sense, but also in the deep time sense. We're present both in time and space. And I think we've lost a fundamental part of how we used to think about that and tell stories to ourselves about each other through the stars. They helped us navigate. They helped us know when to plant, when to harvest, when the floods would come. And it's really only in the last 150 years or so that we've wandered outside after dark, and for the majority of us, have it not be all that dark. Have it be too bright, in fact, to have a working, fundamental, and necessary relationship with the stars, and maybe with ourselves.
So the show is called Now is When We Are, the Stars, and it involves a very, very dark room. It's in the form of a narrative installation. You could think of it like an immersive planetarium or a planetarium that you can sort of walk through. So each star is hand soldered and individually controllable, meaning the entire thing can sort of act as a giant volumetric display. And so most of my work is very, very technical, but it's not about the technology. I use the technology in service of the story. So how do we hide the technology in order to give people an experience that they would not have otherwise been able to have? And one way to do that is to do something that no one in their right mind would ever do, which is solder 5,000 LEDs together, and couple it with a sound technology that's only even recently possible. So in the beginning, we use 124 very small speakers and what's called a wave field synthesis array, and it basically beams audio holograms out into the center of the installation and sort of into your head. And we built one of these. So I prototyped this early version in my studio for almost a year and a half. I got some folks interested and had wonderful development time at universities such as Brown, Carleton College. We went down to the Vauxhall in Baltimore. And we were able to interface with the communities there, give workshops on interactive theater and installation, soldering, and electronics. Through the development, the space got bigger, the LEDs doubled in number, and the channels of audio increased from 124 to 496, which is crazy. And more folks came through, and they leave traces of themselves in the form of audio messages to be included in future iterations of the project. So it's accumulative from each city that it goes to. Because in the stars, the audience, they don't sit and watch a story. They literally walk through the experience and explore themselves and others in the traces of the cosmos. So we use this crazy sound technology, wave field synthesis, and we pair it with RF tracking to actually place these sound holograms near each guest's ear as they slowly navigate through the space. It's like custom sound without the headphones. Every decision that you've ever made in your entire life has led to this exact moment. Every one of you in this room. And that's what the narrator reminds each guest as they walk through. The story of the stars is not the story of the narrator, it's the story of everyone who comes through. It's the story of you. And it's also a little bit of a love letter to grief, big and small, the grief of every passing moment. There's two versions of this show. The narrative version is 45 minutes long, has a beginning, middle, and end. It's only for 8 people at a time. An unseen narrator guides each guest through the installation, which culminates in this exploration of these recordings, these traces of folks who have been in this space before you. So each star actually contains a story that when you walk up to the star, it gets brighter and the volume gets louder and you hear the story, and as you walk away, it gets dimmer and it fades out into the darkness. And then there's the gallery version, which can accommodate up to 40 people at a time in a more open format. The setup is the same for both versions, so they can actually run back to back with no reset. This is Sonia Badia, who's a wonderful production manager. The show works in a variety of venues, from black boxes to found spaces to prosceniums. We just came from BAM, where we had a 4-week run. In a week, we'll go to the Walker, which is the Fly House. The show is very modular. We're very interested in going to cities big and small. I have a dream about doing it in a barn. I have a dream about doing it in very rural communities and getting folks accumulated, getting their stories shared from smaller towns. And believe it or not, the show actually loads in 2 days and is ready to go on the 3rd day. And people have said really, really nice things about the show. Isn't that nice? This is the best review I think I've ever gotten. So it's, like I said, it's a very, very dark room, so it's very, very hard to capture any video, but I'll leave you with just a little taste here.
After a life well lived, or just before reaching your potential? After unbelievable hardship, or unbelievable privilege? After 6 years of being a complete asshole and never realizing it. After 15,166 days being alive. 1 day not. 2 months brushing your teeth. 17 hours pushing the elevator door close button. 12.5 years sleeping, 5 of them poorly. 5 minutes tripping over cords, 45 seconds falling down the stairs, 6 seconds being hit by cars, 9 days kissing someone, 5 weeks in the hospital, 2 days of being blacked out, 24 minutes being sung happy birthday to, 95 minutes swearing, 2 minutes and 36 seconds having truly original ideas, 47 hours being accidentally and unnoticeably captured in the background of other people's cell phone videos, 14 minutes looking at the Grand Canyon from inside your car, 3 minutes giving CPR, 17 hours hugging them goodbye. The last.
So thank you for those 9 minutes. Thank you for breathing with me. I would be absolutely thrilled if you came to see this show. We have a slightly scaled down version playing today, throughout the weekend and throughout Monday, actually. And we have limited time slots. It's at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. It's really quite an adventure to get to. It's a lot of fun. You can register here at this link, or you can just talk to myself. You can talk to Miranda Wright, who's here, or Tommy Kriegsman. And just thank you. Thank you for being here. I hope to see you at the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Now is break time, and we have about 15 minutes for break. And you can hang out here and talk, or go out in the lobby. There's still breakfast out there. So I'll see you back here in 15 minutes. And in that next section will be hosted by John Grenay. Hold on.
Hello, 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 welcome back. Hello, everyone, welcome back. Hey, everyone, if folks can please find a way to your seat or a seat. Welcome back. Hi. I hope you all are feeling much better now. Coming back from the break. My name is John Grenay. I'm the Associate Director here at Under the Radar, and thanks. Thanks, y'all, thanks. Thanks. So I've been at the public for 15 years here, which I know, which I like to measure in 2 years of hanging lights, 3 years hiring those to hang the lights, 7 astonishing years seeing hundreds of sunsets in Central Park, and hundreds of shows bringing some light into the darkness during January. And now, 3 years asking, where are the lights? That might be a metaphor. Speaking of joy, Dan Daw. Dan is the artistic director, CEO of Dan Daw Creative Projects. Dan Daw Creative Projects is a disabled-led company that blurs the divide between theater and dance. Dan exploits his deviating functionality to examine what it means for his queer, crip body to occupy and be unapologetic in non-disabled spaces, and the function and care and interdependence of those spaces. In late 2019, Dan began making The Dan Daw Show in collaboration with a larger creative team, and it premiered in September of 2021. This is a coming attractions, by the way, for those who haven't noticed. Please welcome Dan Daw, Police Counsel, and Zed Lightheart from Dan Daw Creative Projects.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, I'm Dan Daw. My pronouns are he, they. Today I'm wearing a black t-shirt with the words joy as resistance on the front in white block lettering, leather track pants, and bright orange trainers. I'm ginger with a shaved head and a goatee, and I have 2 silver spaces, 1 in each ear, and I have tattoos down both of my arms. And as John said, I'm the artistic director and CEO of Dan Daw Creative Projects, and we work with the 3 key principles of access, care, and consent. And we look at ways we can embed these 3 core values into everything we do, from conversations like this with you all today to the performance and outreach work we do in our communities. And to say more about that is Zed Lightheart, our access support person.
Hello, I'm Zed. I am quite a tall white man in my mid-50s. I have a moustache that I'm just trying out, so feedback on that would be appreciated. I also have tattoos on both arms. Today I'm wearing black sneakers, black trousers, and a black t-shirt with "The future is accessible" written in white block lettering. As Dan said, we ground everything in access, care, and consent. As a team, we wanted to hold those principles, but we then had discussions about how we extend that to our audiences. So we developed something we call pre-show access, which is filtered through my disability. I'm autistic, so I notice a lot sensorially as well as details. So pre-show access happens every night of a run. It's a low-cost, high-benefit offer. So it costs the venue nothing. We bring everything with us. We bring printed materials, we bring an app. We have information available about the content of the show, the look of the show, the costumes. We have access to the stage itself. So if a person has sensory issues and they want to try the intensity of the lights or the intensity of the sound, come in, we've got you. If it's open seating, that would freak me the fuck out. So we will say, come in, where do you want to sit? Okay, we'll put your name on your seat. We will bring you in 5 minutes before the door is open. We will bring in anyone who obviously has physical requirement early. Once those people give me clearance, then we open the house to everybody else. So we prioritize our people. As I said, this runs every night. And our offer runs with myself and Liz, our executive director. So we travel with that wherever we go. And it's very much a bespoke conversation with people who need some more information or need access to the space. How can we make this easier for you? If there's a trigger that applies for you, and we call it a trigger menu. So our analogy is, it's like going to a restaurant and you have a particular allergy. You want to know what foods that's in so that you can be safe. So if you see something on the list like suffocation, choking, tattoos, tentacles, come and see us and we'll have a conversation. So do you need to know what precedes that? Do you need to know the action as it goes through? Do you need to know how many times it comes up in the show? What can we give you so that you can then come in, sit and relax? Because we had somebody talk to us that had been to a different show, they saw their trigger, it happened, they reacted, and then they're like, is that it now? So they're tense for the entire show waiting for it to happen. So if you want more information about access and how we run that in our show, we're around for a good few days. Come and grab us, and we'll have a chat. Thanks. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Ed. So the Dan Dawes Show. We started making the Dan Dawes Show 6 years ago because I was interested in looking at the idea or phenomena of inspiration and what it meant for my disabled body to be an inspiration to largely non-disabled audiences, and looking at what that is, and also looking at the burden of that, and almost exploring the pornography attached to that. But as we went along, I started thinking about it and being real with myself and going, do I want to make a work about how I inspire others? Or do I actually want to make a work about how I inspire myself? What do I give myself in this world that oppresses me on a daily? So I decided to look at the ways, moments in life I feel most joy, moments in my life I feel most free, and those moments in my life where I feel that I'm able to take up the most space I can ever take up. And I realized that the two key things were there. It was when I'm performing on stage or in front of people, and when I'm fucking. And they give me so much freedom. So then I go, okay, it's a show that looks at my relationship to my disability and to kink, and looking at the ways power, pride and shame intersect, acknowledging that there's power, pride and shame attached to being disabled, but also power, pride and shame attached to being dominated in a kink scenario. So the work, I'm essentially being dominated by the other performer, Christopher Owen, but on my terms. And we're able to use a kink session as a holding device to talk about my internalized ableism and essentially to talk about what it is I want from the world. So now to give you more of a sense of what the work looks like, we're going to throw it over to the trailer. We're going to be around for the rest of today and all this week. We leave on Monday. So it'd be great to have more of a sit down and chat if you're that way inclined. We're going to be around. Please come and grab us. We're really lovely. I promise. Okay, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Dan, Liz, and Zed. Thank you so much for that. Next, let me take this off. Next, we'd like to introduce another one of our keynote speakers. I'd like to introduce Ryan Calais Cameron. Ryan is an award-winning writer, actor, and theater maker for Nouveau Rich. Ryan has written Queens of Sheba, which was co-written with Jessica Hagen, and Typical, starring Richard Blackwood. Sellout hits at Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 2018 and 2019, respectively, then winning the Stage Edinburgh Fringe Award. Cameron won Best Director for Black Boys Who Have Considered Suicide When the Hue Gets Too Heavy, and the Black British Awards 2022. Cameron has been chosen as one of the Stage 25 2022 list of future stars of the UK theater industry. Please welcome Ryan Calais Cameron.
Nice. That was basically half of my talk, so thank you. It's cool, man, we freestyle. No, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invite. I'm in New York, man, this is crazy. Nouveau Riche, I started 5 years ago. So it was an idea, it was a concept, and all I kept hearing was, this is impossible, this is impossible, this is impossible. So last year I was invited, well not invited, but I was put on the Stage 25. That was by The Stage. They're a really big deal in London and in the UK. And that was for 25 future artists for the next 25 years. And this year, last week, I was added to the Stage 100, which is the 100 most influential theatre makers in the UK. So, thank you. I feel like the stage could introduce me better than I could introduce myself. But what I want to talk about is how we came, myself and my company came to this point, and what I think makes theatre a better place for all of us. So let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. So 5 years ago, I was an actor. And I had done a lot of television. I had done like Casualty, which is like a really big deal in London. I had done Luther with Idris Elba, but I was more frustrated than I've ever been in my whole entire life. And I felt that the industry, in one way or another, was lying to me in terms of these two big words that we like to use, which is inclusion and diversity. And I was like, I'm here, but I really don't feel included, and I really don't look around and see it feeling like it's diverse. So instead of complaining, I was like, what can I do? I've been in the industry for 10 years. I'm stressed out, I'm a bit aggravated, and I know quite a few artists that feel the same way. So 4 good friends of mine came together and were like, what happens if we create our own thing? What happens if we become the gatekeepers and the commissioners? What happens if we hold the space that we know that we want in our minds and we know that we want in our hearts? And we were like, yeah, let's do it, man, let's go. And then we were like, none of us know how to produce. How do we go about this? And at that time, a really good friend of mine, Jessica Kalisa, was doing a journalism degree. And her final piece was a piece on misogynoir, which I never heard the term before. And she came to me and she was like, yeah, it's basically racism and sexism, you know, and it's the only kind of situation where both of those played a major factor in it. And I was like, what? That can't be. And I read it and I was so inspired by it, but I was like, okay, what can I do? I don't have much money, but if this piece means as much as you say it is, and how about we go to the community and put it out there? And within a day, we had about 70 applications from black women that were just like, yeah, I want to speak. So we held a room, put some money together, we held a room, and it was meant to be 3 hours over one day, and it ended up being 9 hours over 3 days, where we had a room full of black women, and more kept coming, and they were like, this is how I feel, and I've never ever had an outlet before. And at that particular time, there was a massive incident in London in a club called District, no longer around. I think it's for the best. What had happened was there was 4 black women that were turned away from a club for being too dark and too overweight. And for us, as a new company, we were like, this is something that is affecting our community. What can we do about it as artists? I always feel, Nina Simone quote, the art should reflect the times. So this is what's bubbling under right now. It's not hit the mainstream media, but what can we do as artists? So we put on these talks over 3 days. We got a room at the back of our church every Sunday. We would wait for everybody to leave. We would have about 2 hours before we had to lock up, and we would get together with about, all I could offer people was a £3 meal deal. Again, that's another big deal in London. And we put on a show that really meant a lot for us. It was stripped back. And initially it was stripped back because we didn't have the money, but as we were developing it, we were like, no, this is an opportunity for black women to be the main thing in this, for their voices to really sell and push this piece and to tell their truth. And as we were developing it, we realized how much humor was in it and how much we as a people use humor to be able to get through the traumatic experiences in our life. And the show really represents that, even though it goes over quite a lot of harsh topics. And Queens of Sheba was our baby. So taking it to Edinburgh in 2018 was a big deal. One of the first things that I was told was that it wouldn't be able to sell in Edinburgh because it just doesn't have that kind of audience. And my thing was, if you make a show that's good enough, then people will come. If you make a show with heart, with soul, and it is about things that really matter, people will come. And they did. We sold out, man. We sold out in about 1 week, the whole entire... thank you, man. But that, to me, in that moment, what it did is it put a lot of my anxieties at bay, knowing that I could put a show on and that could go to a completely different community and they would get it, and we wouldn't have to pander to them. We would make something that was real and authentic and that was built in a community. But guess what? Theatre's universal. Do you know what I mean? And we don't always have to switch it up and any of that kind of stuff, that people will listen the same way that I listened to Shakespeare growing up. Didn't understand a single word that he was saying, but you know what? I wanted to, so I learned. So that's Queens of Sheba. That will be at the Chelsea Factory from the 18th. It did really well in the UK. We picked up a lot of awards, and it's amazing to be able to bring it overseas, because I believe that even though it was created in a very insular community, the themes are universal, and I believe art is universal. So that's Queens of Sheba, my baby, my first show. Off the back of Queens of Sheba, we were a very young company, again, not really knowing what we're doing, but everyone was like, what's next? And I was like, hey, man, there's this idea, there's this concept that's been on my heart since I was age 12. So age 12 was the first time that I was stopped and searched by the police back home in London. And I think something like that that's so traumatic actually shapes the way that you see the world. And especially for my mother. So around that time was the death of Christopher Older, who was a young black man that died in police custody. So the police bringing me back home just after that really affected the way that my mum raised me from that point onwards. She always would say to me that that's not going to be your fate. I would do anything. And she did. She actually moved me like proper Fresh Prince style to go and live in the West Indies for about 2 years because she was scared that, I might go down a really different. And I was like, wow, that's it's a lot, but, it's a mother's love. But essentially, 15 years later, I was in London and I went to a talk by Janet Older, who is the sister of Christopher Older. And I just couldn't believe that this was a story that I knew about from age 12 and nothing had been done since. And all of the people that were talking and that were donating over 15 years ago have disappeared now. This is just something that constantly happens. And I just felt like as an artist, what could I do possibly to help? I felt like a tweet wasn't enough, donating wasn't enough. I was like, what can I do? And I left it for a while because I thought like it's an untouchable kind of project. But then I was stopped driving through the community that I grew up in. I'm from Lewisham, if you know London. It's tough out there. I was driving through that community as an adult with my children, stopped by the police, and they were very forceful. But in myself, I was like, okay, being stopped by the police is coming of age. I'm past that now, surely. And I got really aggravated. My wife got out of the car and she spoke to the police. We drove home in near silence, and I said, why did you do that? Why did you get out? And she said, I had to. She was like, I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen. She was like, I had to do something. And that broke my heart. And that night I went home and I was like, no, this project needs to be made now. And I wrote typical in 12 hours, no sleep. That was the first draft. And I was like, for me, theatre needs to be of the moment. I don't want to hear about something and then go, okay, now we have to make the project. No, I want to feel something, a level of passion that means that I can't do anything right now other than write this project. It means so much to this moment. And as I was developing it, there were so many more people that were coming out and going, this needs to be spoken about because we hear about the things that are happening in the US, but we don't talk about it. There's a huge hypocrisy about what's happening here in the UK. And I developed a second draft, and I went to meet the Older family. Most nervous I've ever been in my whole entire life, because I said if they don't like it and they don't want to do it, then the project's done. Which is, it's respectful, but I have been working on it for a little bit of time as well. So I was like, I hope they really like what we're doing, and they loved it. They loved that we were picking up the story again. They had never been to the theatre in their life, but understood that there was a power in bringing people into a room for an hour or so and telling stories. So we developed that project, and that went to Edinburgh and sold out again. So we had 2 back-to-back sellout shows, reminding you that this is the place that people told me that I would never be able to sell in. We sold. So that was 2019, just before the pandemic. We were really proud of it. It reviewed really well. We picked up a few awards on the way. But for me, what it really proved to me as an artist is that stick to your guns, and that there is room for activism in theatre. People will come, people will hear, and hopefully people will change. So that's typical. And my newborn, for black boys, oh my gosh, what's the name of the show? For black boys, for black boys who have considered suicide when the hue gets too heavy. As a young artist, I read For Colored Girls by Entasaki Shine Gay. I know she's a queen out here in New York. And the show inspired me on a completely different level, mostly because of how it affected black women at the time and how it gave black women space to be themselves, to understand that there was value in them, and to understand that their stories really mattered. And I was like, wow, that was in the 70s. And the play was incredible, but the testimonies from women were just out of this world. And I was like, imagine if we could have that back home. Imagine if I could make young black men feel as though they mattered. And not just that their life mattered, that also the other black man across the road matters also. And that if I value my life, I value your life, and I can't take your life, and I won't commit my life to prison because it means something. And then 10 years later, I was still going, I don't know, man. I don't know. So I created a play called Typical that was based on young black men and the idea of homicide and the idea of seeing value in themselves. Samilia actually helped put that on at the Bush. That was a little preview, like 20 minutes, I think that was about 5 years ago. And as I, Timbuktu. Yeah. That was Timbuktu. That was before For Black Boys. So that was the first like embryo version. And as time went on and I became a father and I felt that there was more to the story than just young black men and homicide, I was like, actually, as I'm getting older, there's more things that are psychological and they've always been that, but we just didn't have the language to be able to articulate that. And then the pandemic came and I was like, okay, I understand what you're going through. You're not just sad, you're actually going through a depression. You don't just want to leave the house, you're actually going through an anxiety. But again, there was no language. But what I wanted to do particularly with this show, coming back to theatre after the pandemic, is I wanted to create a show that was like a dream. I described this show as a Black Boy Fantasia. I wanted to create something that everybody said we couldn't do. So you wouldn't be able to sell shows with working class artists, with artists that have never performed before, and with black and people of color artists and creative teams. These are all of the things that you just don't touch if you want your show to do well. And I was like, I'm really quite stubborn. And I was like, I believe we can do it. But for us, it was like, how do we change theatre? So not just talk about it or not just go, okay, the building and everything in the building remains the same, but we just go, come on, come inside. I was like, how do we actually change the way that the building looks, the way that it feels? How do I say to you, you're not just welcome here, but in fact, this is your home. So the moment you open these doors, you don't just see all these old white guys on horses with like swords in their hands. You actually see pictures of actually guys that look like you, right? You look... Yeah. You know, you come in and the music isn't Beethoven and it's not this classical stuff that doesn't relate to you. The music is the music that you listen to at home. You go to the bar and they've got rum punch, you know, they've got patties, you know, they've got things that you relate to and you go, this is more than just a show, it's an experience, right? For me, the show starts the moment that I drop the trailer. That's when you get excited, right? You open the doors and you see this whole entire new world. That's the show for me. When the lights turn up on stage, you know, that's the second act for me. So how do we create theatre where communities believe that this is their home? I was saying to someone earlier on today that during the pandemic, when a lot of the theatres in London were being shut down because they couldn't afford to open, we should have had our communities nailing themselves literally to the buildings going, you're not taking this down, this is my home. If we have these theatres in the middle of communities and the communities don't care about it, then us as artists and creatives, we've not done our job, as far as I'm concerned. So how do we make something feel like it belongs to people? And that comes down to the artwork, that comes down to the posters. I don't do traditional theatre artwork. We do stuff that looks like Boohoo commercials, man, because that's my target audience, right? When you're flicking through your phone and you see something like this, you go, I like that. They look like me. They talk like me. They move like me. I want to see what they're doing. I want to know what they're talking about. And that's what the future of theatre looks and feels like to me. It's about community. It's about activism. It's about doing things with your heart. And it's about reinventing the wheel, as far as I'm concerned, in order to get the people in that we say we are so desperately trying to get in. I'm Ryan Callie Cameron. This is my team. As you can see, everybody is young and beautiful. It's a requirement. These are the guys that help me do what we do. We are in the midst of bringing Queen Sheba to Chelsea Factory in the next few weeks. We are taking a show to the West End in a few months. We have just opened our own space in my backyard. Thank you, man. Thank you, man. We are just opening a 120-seat theatre in our community that I grew up in, the theatre that I wasn't allowed in as a kid. We got the keys, man. So we're doing... We got the keys. So we're doing things locally, we're doing things nationally, and me being here in New York, I would love to do things internationally because I believe that the work is good enough and it speaks for itself. Nouveau Riche, that's us online, and that's our website. Please do get in touch. Please talk to me. I'm a little bit awkward, but I'm all right, man. I'm all right, all right. Thank you. I've been Ryan Cameron. You've been amazing. Thank you, New York.
Ryan, thank you so much for that. Amazing, amazing. All right. Next up is another of our coming attractions. I'd like to introduce One Whale's Tale. One Whale's Tale is a multidisciplinary production company that creates, fosters, and generates new independent work with appreciation for magic and for the preservation of culture. They create work that accurately reflects the experience of immigrants, first-generation Americans, and people of color by creating space for them to tell their own stories. Through an August 21 workshop, now let's pause, August 2020 was when this workshop happened. Think back where we were with all of this in the pandemic. They had a workshop of this show called Quince, where they were able to develop safety protocols into the artistic elements of the production. Then in June of 2022, they were able to do a full production of Quince, which completed a sold-out run at Bushwick Star after a developmental residency at the Shed. I'd love to continue more about this, but I'm gonna make sure that they are able to speak to their show with their own words. So please welcome Alpitha and Camilo of One Whale's Tale.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Alpitha.
And I'm Camilo.
I am the co-creator of Quince, the co-founder of One Whale's Tale, and also the director of Quince, which is what you just saw a little clip of.
And I'm the writer of Quince. I'm also the co-founder of One Whale's Tale. I'm really happy you're all here because if I know one thing, it's that we all became involved in the theater to wake up really early in the morning. I was allowed one joke, and that was it.
So Quince is an immersive show, and it follows the story of a young, queer, Mexican-American girl on the eve of her quinceañera. And the audience is invited to an actual quinceañera. This is grounded in the way that Camilo and I both grew up going to cultural events that are so theatrical always. And also because we saw so largely in our own immigrant communities that these cultural events, they started to die out because the new generation of people don't seem to be accepted into these things, you know, and we wanted to find a way to make these things more open and, I don't know, modern.
And be able to update the tradition so that people didn't feel the need to assimilate, but to be able to find themselves in these rituals and these traditions so that they would keep going on through generations.
So the main character in Quince is gay, and she wants to bring a girl to her quinceañera. And in so many communities, they'd say, you're not having a quinceañera. And it's a metaphor for so many things of how we become American, and we want to find ways to keep these things alive. So in this quinceañera, she brings the girl. Quince also functions uniquely as a vessel for community events. So not only do we do the show, but we do these events in different areas and neighborhoods where we take all of the aesthetics of the show and the characters of the show, the live music, the food, the drinks, and we do them without the narrative.
Our company is One Whale's Tale. Alpitha and I have been working together for 14 years. And while I see everything in terms of words on a page, Alpitha sees pretty much everything else. And she creates these worlds from the words that I write.
So in August of 2020, we did a workshop of Quince in a community garden in Bushwick. The community garden is called the People's Garden. It's an incredible meeting place in our own neighborhood that fights for food justice. They grow their own food, they feed the community, and they teach people in the neighborhood how to grow food. It's directly under the J train, so it's extremely urban farming. And, you know, we had obviously planned to do this show in April of 2020. I think everyone knows why that didn't happen. So we started to think about what was most important to us and our values, and we work locally, and we always have. So we worked locally, and we were able to do the first live theater in New York City during the COVID-19 pandemic because we believe, as you do also, that theater has to be of the moment. Art needs to reflect what's going on, and there was a deep need for catharsis, for communal healing, and for joy and celebration. We got a lot of attention, as you see up here.
And, you know, one thing this production really proved to me is that art and theater can be relevant, but only if we're actually listening to what people need and if we're making work that addresses what they need and what they want. And for that reason, we started doing a series of community events, starting with a Dia de los Muertos celebration.
So the Dia de los Muertos celebration was with the Gowanus Dredgers Boathouse. The Gowanus Dredgers are really cool because, exclusively because of their advocacy for the Gowanus Canal, it's being rehabilitated. This was in October of 2020, still a very scary time to commune, but we did this outdoors, and we had the characters from the show being canoed up and down the Gowanus Canal. We created a community altar where people could bring objects and photos of people that they had lost, not just during the pandemic, but before. There was so much grief we were all carrying with us every day, and we wanted to make a space where people could use that grief for something productive. We had a live band, we had amazing street vendors, we had an incredible indigenous dance group, the Tequanas Dance Group, from the neighborhood that we were working in. And we had all the characters from Quince wandering around and floating down the Gowanus Canal, I believe the most polluted waterway in the United States, under a huge full moon, and spirits were with us. It was really incredible. A lot of people showed up, and a lot of people felt a lot of catharsis. We did some more community events after that. We did one in Maria Hernandez Park in Bushwick. It was very much educational, family-oriented, and then we did another one because the Bushwick Star had just bought a new space in a neighborhood that they weren't really ever inhabiting. And so we did a block party with them to introduce them to their neighbors and their neighbors to meet them. And we had the same elements. We had the characters of Quince. We worked with local bakeries. I love giant cakes. We had live band, we had street vendors, we had a big rainstorm, and then we threw flowers in puddles, which was one of my favorite parts of the show. And we had an indigenous dance group, the Tequanas de Quetzalcoatl, which they're really unique because you want to talk about it?
They're a very, very regional form of indigenous dance from the state of Puebla in Mexico. And the way the dance came about is that there were 4 villages that were at war with each other, and all of a sudden this jaguar came about and started killing people from each of the villages. So all of the villages came together to kill the jaguar and to protect themselves. And after that, they began doing a dance that honored this danger that came to them that ultimately ended up bringing them together. And a lot of people from that part of Mexico have ended up in Brooklyn and in Queens, and all of their dance is about community. So we've been working with them for several years, and they're a big part of our work.
And this is an mostly female group, which is not how it's traditionally performed, but we love them. And their jaguar is like 6 years old and very small, as you can see. And he has a real whip.
Yeah, the jaguar has a real bullwhip, yeah. And so does this 6-year-old
And
jaguar.
so you are afraid because it's real. So all of these things are part of our development of our show. So yes, because of all of this, we were invited to be part of the Bushwick Stars 2022 season, and we did a full production of Quince. It was a 4-week run. It was sold out. It was a big party. It was really fun. And all of the elements that you've seen were a part of it. There was a jaguar. She was not 6 years old. And I transformed the space into a magical banquet hall. Everything was pink, literally everything, every pipe, every corner. The audience was greeted by a street vendor at the front door. They were invited to bring food into the space. There was a bar. There was candy and snacks on all of the tables, and everyone was invited to enjoy a party. They were allowed to laugh loud. They were allowed to interject. I invited them to take their phones out and take photos. I wanted them to feel like they were at a party. And all the action happened around them. This is just some more photos of the show. We had a live band. I was a Selena impersonator. It was like a 1-minute cameo, and it was the best 1 minute of my life every night. And, you know, the audience came up to us after the show. We had a lot of dialogues with them. So much of my work is about creating dialogues with the audience. And I can't tell you how many times we heard, I've never been to a play, but this was amazing. I cried. And that demographic of people that was saying that to me were usually like 50 to 6-year-old men with thick accents. So I was like, wow, I basically made my father cry. This is amazing. That's not really the sort of person you see at shows. And so many people came up to us, not just from the Latin American community, but from all different immigrant communities, saying to us, thank you so much for telling this story. You know, I relate to this so much, and I was so comfortable. And that's why we do this work. The press loved it. So after all of that, we were invited by Lincoln Center to be part of the Summer for the City series, which was insane because less than 2 years prior, we were doing a show in a community garden in Bushwick, and then we were invited to take over all of Lincoln Center's outdoor plaza and campus. So we took over all of Hearst Plaza. And again, we used all the elements of our show. We had 4 bands. All those bands, their music that they play was in the show, but this time we got to have them singing the music. We had all the characters there. We had street vendors. Over 500 people came, and it culminated in an amazing silent disco. The Indigenous dance group was there. And we made a bunch of installations that were way larger than could be accommodated in the Bushwick Star, like a 20-foot.
A 20-foot Virgen de Guadalupe that I made in 2 days. There was also a lowrider there, which was one of my personal favorite things there.
Yeah, we filled the reflection pool with giant flowers and sombreros.
And what was really beautiful about this was how many people from Brooklyn and Bushwick came out to this and got to see the music that they grew up listening to and seeing the dances that they grew up seeing, you know, the music their grandmothers played while they were like, you know, doing their thing. And now they're at Lincoln Center watching live performances of this. It's really hard to understate like how important that is to people and how you can work to make people feel welcome in these spaces, because it is possible.
And it's a lot to do with people being able to see themselves in the art, which is something that I think needs to be repeated over and over in the theatrical community. Like, who are we putting up there, and remembering that people need to see themselves in this work in order to feel like they can relate to it. So how do we do all this? A lot of it comes from the training that we do. It's very physical. It comes from a bunch of different places, and it cultivates curiosity, wonder, disbelief, and narrative through physical and through the imaginary. So we go into different communities, and we take our cast and our props and our costumes, live music that makes sense for that community. It depends on where we are. We try to work with local musicians. We work with community groups that already exist. Community groups that have been doing this work for years and years and years, and we invite them in, and we create an environment where everyone feels welcome. And then we move together. We move and we become a community. And these workshops not only help us develop our work, they help other people develop whatever it is they're working on or whatever it is they're working through. And the workshops can be used to develop a show. They can be used to meet the people that are outside your own building. they can be used to put on a 3-day event or a 1-day event.
And what's really fun about them is you don't need artistic training or theatrical training to participate in them. They can be done in virtually any space, indoor or outdoor, and they're extremely adaptable.
Yes. So here's some pictures of some of our trainings. They too are very fun. And this is kind of the most important part for us about our work. Something that came up over and over since August of 2020 is that Quince is for the people. People would literally shout it at us. They'd commented on our press articles. They'd commented on our social media. Not the same person either, just all different people saying the same phrase, which was pretty cool to hear that Quince is for the people. Because we really do believe that that is what it's for. We try to listen to the community that we're in. We work with the community groups that have already been doing this work. And we create art out of cultural events that are relatable to us, but also we want to update them and keep them inviting.
Yeah, and we really do believe that theater and art is relevant, but we also have to do the hard work to make people interested in participating with us. And we can do that if we listen to what they need and what they want.
Throughout the pandemic, we all heard over and over that the theater wasn't essential. It wasn't essential. I personally couldn't stop making art because I was so anxious about what was going on outside. And I saw that people really needed that. And I do believe that art is essential, but it's only relevant if you're really listening to the needs of the community, you know, in that moment.
So whether it's for workshops, for classes, for one-day events, for festivals, for performances, or even for tours, we want to talk more with you about our work, and we want to hear about your work. And one of the things we're really committed to doing is making sure that we build a more interesting and more accessible theater community for everyone.
Yeah, so we'll be here all day. And I believe you all have our contact info. So if you want to talk about how this could work with your institution, how you can get to know your own neighbors better, how you can create community in a more organic and holistic way through art, you could talk to us if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, One Whale's Tale. Thank you. Okay, moving on. I wanted to thank an organization that has been so important in our community and in the field, and that are right now streaming this whole conference online, HowlRound. So please give a shout out to HowlRound. If you're here with someone you shouldn't be, try to, be cool about that. All right. So now, I'm going to do a short, hopefully short, pitch for the Belarus Free Theater. They wanted to make it here themselves, but they've been a little bit occupied. But we, a couple years ago, Oscar Eustace and Under the Radar commissioned them to make a new piece called Generation Genes Part 2. The first time we saw the company was Generation Genes, and which took the artistic director of the Belarus Free Theater through his life in the East Europe, selling jeans on the black market and listening to rock and roll and becoming an activist and journalist and eventually an artist. Should we roll tape? This is a little peek at, this is a benefit for La Mama where they did the first showing of this. So hopefully it'll roll, and here we go. Just a few bits.
В юности было много счастливых периодов, или, скажем, моментов. Моментов счастливых много, а вот периодов Странный он был. Первый аккаунт в социальных сетях я взял себе псевдоним Килгар Траут. Я тогда уже понимал, что Килгар Траут — это альтер-эго самого Курта, его внутренний демон, трикстер и графоман. Но как же тяжело было ощущать себя Килгаром Траутом в Советском Союзе. Даже выбор псевдонима в соцсетях становился испытанием. Сначала, заполняя форму, я набрал на клавиатуре Килгар Траут, как и было в оригинале, нелепое имя и название рыбы. Среди вас есть хоть один Килгар? А Траут? Социальная сеть мне ответила: данный никнейм занят, попробуйте другой. В итоге я перепробовал 20 вариантов написания, и лишь один подошел. Килгар Траут. T-R-A-U-T-T. Тогда я понял, какое множество молодых людей сидело в Советском Союзе в своих крошечных кладовках с бутылкой белого вина и томиком Ванигута. Как много нас было. Нас, тех, кто плохо переносил советскую реальность и мечтал стать как минимум графоманом, а как максимум трикстером. Недоброе я почувствовал где-то в конце. Как я теперь?
You can read along. This generation, Genes, is about Kolya's life after in exile, and most of the Belarus Free Theater are refugees. All of them are refugees from Belarus. They had to move out this November, I believe. They're all wanted. If they come back, they'll get life sentences, basically, in prison. They're working, they've made a large work called Dogs of Europe, which it's a large work, and it has a lot of Ukrainian artists and Ukrainian musicians in it, and continuing to do their work and talk about what's happening in this area. So we are definitely looking for partners to make this happen, and talk to me about it later. Okay, thank you very much. One more thing. Here we go. It's now, I'm going to have a pleasure of introducing to you a new friend of mine. I was invited out to this place called The Brick, on Brooklyn. At Brooklyn, you know? And after the nosebleed, I was great. And it was an amazing experience. It's a great place. It has a great, amazing charm, and it has an amazing leader, and that leader is Teresa Buchhauser. Thank you. Please welcome Teresa. She's coming.
Hey everyone, I'm Teresa Buchheister, but nice try, Mark. It's a lot, it's 13 letters, it's a lot, but it means book thief, so Buchheister, sort of easy to remember, after you learn that part of it. So, a little bit about me. I'm from Kansas, but I've been here for almost 20 years. And a lot of, it's so fun to hear everyone talk today. I use they, them. I'm wearing a caftan. I exclusively wear caftans. I'm wearing red shoes with no laces. I have tattoos on both my arms as well, and also my notes. So I have a tattoo that is a notepad in the shape of Kansas so that I can add notes to it all the time and not have to bring paper around with me. I have a day job. And I just want to acknowledge that because I think a lot of people are like, oh, a career in the arts. How fancy, I get paid to make my own stuff. Nah, I've always had a job since I was 13, still do. And it's not running the Brick. But I do that because I love it. And that's what I'm hearing a lot today, is we do this because we love it, because it is life-saving and changing in so many ways. Growing up in Kansas in a very weird church, going to conversion therapy, and wanting to die because of it, theater saved me, literally. And it continues to do that for so many people in so many different ways. So hearing everyone talk today, I was like, we gotta talk about space and safe space and how to make that space. And there's so many different ways to do it, but also tons of barriers to doing that as well. And one of the barriers is where we come from. And how do we make that something that is empowering and exciting, as opposed to like, oh, I don't deserve to be here. Oh, no, imposter syndrome, I should get off the stage right now. No, we all have things to say. There's not a lack of voices that are worth hearing. There's just a lack of spaces where it's safe to hear them. And so that, for me, as a person who's spending all of my time in New York, it's a real struggle. Real estate is a big part of it. So I just want to say into the universe that it would be great if landlords could not get tax breaks for keeping their spaces empty and let people make art in their spaces. It'd be amazing if it wasn't such a like debilitating struggle to find housing here, because those are the ways that art can be more sustainable in New York and everywhere. But those are two of the big things, and that's about space. And we need to be able to access space in order to make space accessible to everyone else. I have many different projects, and I think there's probably a bio somewhere and you can read it. One of them is running the Brick Theater, not BRIC, which is also great and also in Brooklyn, but don't go there if you think you're coming to a show at the Brick. It's off the G, so you could get there quickly, but BRICK, and across the street is a new space that I opened in June called Brick Aux, AUX, which is a gallery, rehearsal, office space. And I took over the Brick in January of 2020. Woo! So that's been pretty fun, but we've found so many ways to connect to our community and to artists, and through this time of massive struggle, and it taught me a lot that I didn't even necessarily want to learn, but you have to in order to save the space. Like Ryan said, I was like nailing myself to the space, being like, don't take this from me. I'll write insurance claims. One of my day jobs is voiceover, and so the actors of Pokemon did a fundraiser, Pokemon Spelling Bee, that helped us continue to save the space over time. And so there are ways to get creative. So also I do the Exponential Festival, which was a festival I started with $0 in 2016. It is also in the month of January. It is going on right now in multiple venues across Brooklyn. And the idea there was sort of like, there's all this cool stuff going on in January, but none of it's happening in Brooklyn at that time. So I was like, let's do something. Let's figure it out. What do we have? We have relationships. We have spaces. Many of those spaces that were in the first year have closed because that's just the vibe of New York. But it's still going on, and we sort of reinvent it every year. So look up theexponentialfestival.org. It'll go all the way into February, because if the last week of January is also part of February, it counts as January, is how I feel about it. And then I also have a theater company, Title Point. We're premiering 2 films on the 22nd. The vibe of the company, the great journalist Helen Shaw wrote that it's like Abbott and Costello wander onto a Richard Foreman set and get brutally murdered. So that's sort of what we do. And yeah, so all of these things are sort of a component part of who makes me, who I am, and how I project that into the world. So thinking about what is the future of performance, that was sort of the missive that I received about like what to talk about. Talk about yourself a little bit, and then I'm gonna check the time. Halfway there. What do you view as the future of performance? And one of the things that, thinking about space is how we occupy those spaces, and thinking about the idea of sustainability not being synonymous with selling out, whatever that means philosophically. Your philosophy is how you do everything. It's how you interact with people the minute that they go to your website or step into your space. And rigor is not synonymous with rigidity. I think that theater can get so rigid because of the scarcity mindset, and we're all like trying to go after these things, and it can make you sort of calcify. And like Ryan said, it's like make stuff that is about right now, not something that in 10 years you'll be like, oh, remember that when that happened 10 years ago? Make things for now. And you can have rigor with that. And you should have rigor with that. I take it very seriously. I'm a really sort of batshit person, but I take what I do very seriously. And so I think that to develop practices that are completely serious to you, but also flexible. And sort of radical flexibility has been the learning thing for me in the last 3 years, is how do we continue to pivot? And we never stop pivoting. You know, it's not like we're trying to get to a place and then land there. It's let's keep pivoting, let's keep listening. Let's hear our audiences, let's listen to artists. And then I'm in a continual postmortem is what I describe my life as. It's like every day. Every day you learn, you change, you grow, you learn, you change, you grow. And you do that by listening and doing. And those are sort of my takeaways. I'm gonna just check my notes to make sure that there's other stuff that I could talk about endlessly, but that's what we're here for, to talk to each other endlessly and keep these conversations going across time and space. So thank you for having me. I can't wait to talk to all of you about things if you want to. You know, consent is very important. So I consent to talking to you if you want to talk to me. But have a great rest of your Under the Radar APAP time.
So if she forgives me for massacring her name, please talk to Teresa. She's great. Ronnie, Ryan, Teresa, these are the visionaries of the future. And I think I wanted you to meet them so that we can start to incorporate their visions into ours and keep this thing going. Now we have a special presentation of an award named for Martha Coignet, one of the giants of international cultural exchange, who is no longer with us. Her work lives on, and Linda Chapman, lately of New York Theater Workshop, will come and tell us about the award. Please welcome Linda Chapman.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to be together again, isn't it? Amazing. Well, I have to say, being in this room, I want to acknowledge the passing of my dear friend Emmett Foster, who was Joe Papp's assistant for 18 years, just a dear friend, and I know a good friend of many, many people. So just being in the room, Emmett, have a wonderful journey. With Joan Firestone, I'm the co-director of the Gilda Coignet International Theater Award Program. I want to thank Mark and everybody involved with the festival here for making space to announce that this is a project of the League of Professional Theater Women, continuing its 40th anniversary celebration. We're pleased to announce that Petrona de la Cruz of Chiapas, Mexico, has been chosen to receive our 2023 GC International Theater Award, nominated again by our beloved Olga Garay English, who sadly can't be with us. And Joan was supposed to be doing this presentation with me, and she tested positive yesterday. So I know, here I am on my own. But I'm glad to be here. I want to recommend, in your bags, you should have gotten Olga's statement. It's a beautiful statement. I will not be able to do it justice by reading it. I'll give you a couple paragraphs, but I really wish you would take a look at this. She tells us about Petrona, who was subjected to sexual violence as a very young woman. She's the first indigenous person in Mexico to win the coveted Rosario Castellanos Prize for Literature in 1992. She began to explore community theater with a Mayan cultural cooperative as a very, very young woman. She began to explore community theater as a medium for addressing problems such as domestic violence, rape, alcohol abuse, migration, and poverty as they affect lives of women. Her debut play focuses on the seemingly endless violence visited on Mayan women and the matter-of-fact impossibility of recourse. It's the first play written by an indigenous Highland Mayan woman about the real-life social drama of family violence. Since then, her plays have been performed in several countries. She continues to write as she searches for new ways to encourage economic and cultural development for indigenous women and children. She is currently serving as a congresswoman for the state of Chiapas local Congress. Now, when you look at this woman's history, her trajectory, I'm just moved beyond anything I can imagine for myself and probably for most of us. So anyway, we will be bringing Petrona here in 2023. October 10th will be the actual ceremony. Now I want to, the program was established in 2011 to honor Rosamund Gilder and Martha Coignet. And again, I look to Martha as a mentor and somebody who really taught me how to travel. You know, her work with the International Theater Institute, I guess the catchphrase that still holds so much value is creating mutual understanding through theater. And I think as we reset our goals here, coming back together, we've got a lot to learn from Martha. We will be doing an event. We haven't located our venue, but as my partner Joan chided me yesterday, she says, just emphasize that the award is a way of meeting international colleagues and of creating programs that will sustain and grow essential relationships. You may want to mention that the past program exists on the League of Professional Theater Women YouTube site. And our 2020 program really blew up because we had to do it online. And suddenly we had all of our nominees were able to participate on panels and be interviewed. So that work exists right now. We also had we had a project that evolved out of some of the nominees for that last award, and it turned into a project called Theater from the Streets. It's basically online. The New Perspectives Theater Company has also posted a couple of YouTube reels on their YouTube channel. So this is what we aspire to. And now we want to reach out to all of you. We want to take this beyond the league. And we want to invite you to be thinking about extraordinary women who are doing, not only doing extraordinary work, but who are also helping other women theater artists to do work. I mean, I think that's for us. There are a lot of extraordinary women artists, but who are giving back and who are bringing along the next generation. So at any rate, we hope that you'll be thinking about this, and I will be reaching out to you all, and I hope you'll be reaching out to me and to my friend Joan. You should know Joan Firestone. She was Kitty Carlisle Hart's second at NISCA back in the day. She was one of the executive producers of The Moth. She's still on the On Guard Arts board. Very active 91-year-old. And anyway, yeah, I wish you could have met her today because she's really an inspiration. Anyway, that is my story. Again, I want to talk with you look in your packets. You have both our press release and Olga's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful statement. And I'd love to talk to you about the award and about some of the things that might grow from it. If you have ideas about how we might interact, please let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we were able to do that for Martha and the whole program. Okay, who's hungry? Hungry? All right, we have to get out of here so fast. And there is food. I believe it's ready. I hope. Emma, we're good? There's the boxes are ready, and I think they're up in the library. So please take your stuff, and we'll move out to, we'll have lunch. And then at 1 o'clock, we're going to see Our Country. After Our Country, we'll meet again in the Ansbacher Theater, where there'll be a special presentation of a Ukrainian project. So please, thank you so much for this morning. See you soon. Bye.